Question 1. Regulatory review indicates that during the Amity University entrance exam, a candidate observes another applicant discreetly using unauthorized notes. The candidate is aware of the university's strict policy against academic dishonesty and the potential consequences for both the cheater and anyone who aids or abets such behavior. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the observing candidate? Option A. Ignore the observed cheating to avoid potential conflict or involvement. Option B. Directly confront the cheating student during the examination to stop the act. Option C. Discreetly report the observed cheating to the examination invigilator or designated university official immediately after the exam concludes. Option D. Offer the cheating student assistance to ensure they do not get caught. Correct answer is C. Discreetly report the observed cheating to the examination invigilator or designated university official immediately after the exam concludes. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation ethically and in compliance with Amity University's established guidelines. The correct approach involves reporting the observed misconduct to the appropriate university authorities. This upholds the principles of academic integrity, fairness to all applicants, and the reputation of Amity University. By reporting, the individual acts as a responsible member of the academic community, ensuring that the entrance examination process remains a true measure of merit and that the university's admission standards are maintained. This aligns with the implicit ethical obligation to prevent academic dishonesty, which is a cornerstone of any reputable educational institution's regulatory framework. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed cheating. This inaction tacitly condones academic dishonesty and undermines the fairness of the examination process for all other candidates. It fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to maintain academic integrity and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, thereby compromising the quality of education and the university's standing. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the cheating student directly during the examination. While seemingly proactive, this could disrupt the examination environment for other students, potentially leading to accusations of interference or bias. It also bypasses the established university procedures for handling academic misconduct, which are designed to ensure a fair and thorough investigation. A third incorrect approach would be to offer assistance to the cheating student. This is a direct act of academic dishonesty itself, making the observer complicit in the misconduct. It violates fundamental ethical principles of honesty and fairness and would have severe consequences if discovered, including potential disciplinary action against the observer. Professionals in such situations should follow a structured decision-making process. 1. Identify the ethical conflict and potential consequences. 2. Consult relevant university policies and guidelines regarding academic integrity and reporting procedures. 3. Prioritize adherence to ethical principles and regulatory requirements. 4. Take appropriate action to report the observed misconduct through the designated channels, ensuring confidentiality where applicable. 5. Avoid actions that could compromise the integrity of the examination or involve personal complicity in unethical behavior. Question 2. Consider a scenario where a close friend, who is also a fellow student at Amity University, is struggling with a challenging assignment due tomorrow. They are feeling overwhelmed and have asked you to share your completed assignment or help them write significant portions of it, claiming they will fail if they don't get immediate assistance. You are aware of Amity University's strict policies on academic integrity and the severe consequences of plagiarism and unauthorized collaboration. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Complete a significant portion of the assignment for your friend to help them meet the deadline, assuring them it's a one-time favor. Option B. Offer to review their work and provide guidance on how they can approach the assignment themselves, pointing them to relevant course materials and university academic support services. Option C. Share your completed assignment with your friend so they can use it as a reference to complete their own work before the deadline. Option D. Advise your friend to seek help from online tutoring services that offer to complete assignments for students for a fee. Correct answer is B. Offer to review their work and provide guidance on how they can approach the assignment themselves, pointing them to relevant course materials and university academic support services. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate needs of a student with the established academic integrity policies of Amity University. The pressure to assist a struggling student, especially one who is a friend, can create a conflict of interest and an ethical dilemma. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic standards while also demonstrating empathy and support. The correct approach involves guiding the student towards legitimate academic support resources available through the university. This upholds the principles of academic integrity by ensuring that the student's work is their own and that they are learning the material through their own efforts. Amity University's academic regulations, which are designed to foster a fair and honest learning environment, would mandate that students complete their assignments independently. Providing unauthorized assistance, such as sharing answers or completing parts of the assignment, would violate these regulations and compromise the integrity of the assessment process. This approach also aligns with the ethical responsibility of an academic community member to promote learning and uphold standards. An incorrect approach would be to directly provide the answers or complete portions of the assignment for the friend. This action directly violates Amity University's academic integrity policies, which prohibit plagiarism and unauthorized collaboration. It undermines the learning process for the friend, preventing them from developing the necessary skills and understanding. Ethically, it is dishonest and unfair to other students who are completing their work independently. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the friend's request and offer no support or guidance. While this avoids direct violation of academic integrity policies, it fails to demonstrate the ethical responsibility to assist fellow students within appropriate boundaries. It can damage relationships and does not contribute to a supportive academic environment. A third incorrect approach would be to suggest the friend seek help from external, unverified sources that might offer to complete the assignment. This not only violates Amity University's academic integrity policies, but also exposes the friend to potential exploitation and the risk of submitting plagiarized or substandard work, which could lead to severe academic penalties. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first identifying the ethical conflict and the relevant university policies. Then, one should consider the potential consequences of each course of action for all parties involved, including the student, the university, and oneself. The decision should prioritize adherence to academic integrity and ethical principles, while also seeking to provide constructive and legitimate support. This often means directing individuals to official university resources and upholding established rules. Question 3. The performance metrics show a significant deviation from the expected success rate for a particular section of the Amity University entrance exam. While the data suggests a need for improvement, there is pressure from senior administration to present a uniformly positive report to stakeholders. What is the most ethically sound course of action? Option A. Adjust the scoring criteria retrospectively for the affected section to bring the success rate in line with expectations. Option B. Present the performance metrics accurately, highlighting the areas of concern and proposing a plan for future improvement. Option C. Blame external factors for the lower performance without conducting a thorough internal review. Option D. Omit the data from the underperforming section from the final report to maintain a positive overall impression. The correct answer is B. Present the performance metrics accurately, highlighting the areas of concern and proposing a plan for future improvement. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between achieving institutional goals and upholding ethical principles. The pressure to meet performance metrics can tempt individuals to overlook or rationalize ethically questionable actions. Careful judgment is required to navigate this tension, ensuring that the pursuit of success does not compromise integrity or the well-being of stakeholders. The correct approach involves a commitment to transparency and adherence to established ethical guidelines. This means acknowledging the discrepancy in performance metrics and initiating a process to investigate its causes without resorting to misrepresentation. The regulatory framework for Amity University entrance exam, while not explicitly detailed here, would implicitly mandate honesty, fairness, and integrity in all academic and administrative processes. Upholding these principles ensures the credibility of the examination and the institution. An incorrect approach would be to manipulate data or present a misleading interpretation of the performance metrics to create a false impression of success. This directly violates the ethical obligation of honesty and could lead to a breach of institutional trust and potentially regulatory sanctions if the examination process is governed by specific accreditation or oversight bodies. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the discrepancy entirely, hoping it goes unnoticed. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and a failure to proactively address potential issues that could undermine the integrity of the entrance examination. Such inaction can have long-term negative consequences for the university's reputation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations. This involves identifying the ethical dilemma, gathering all relevant facts, considering the potential consequences of different actions, consulting relevant policies and ethical codes, and making a decision that aligns with professional integrity and institutional values. In this case, the framework would guide the individual to investigate the performance metrics honestly and transparently, rather than attempting to conceal or distort the reality. Question 4. The investigation demonstrates that a prospective student who has otherwise strong academic credentials has encountered unforeseen personal circumstances that have made it exceptionally difficult to provide a required document by the stated deadline. As a member of the Amity University Entrance Exam Admissions Committee, what is the most ethically and procedurally sound approach to handle this situation? Option A. Inform the student that the deadline is absolute and their application will be rejected due to the incomplete documentation, regardless of their academic merit or personal circumstances. Option B. Grant an immediate extension for the document submission without consulting the admissions committee based on the student's explanation of their personal difficulties. Option C. Discuss the student's personal situation and the potential for an exception with other faculty members not directly involved in the admissions committee to gauge their opinions. Option D. Proceed with a thorough review of the student's application, documenting the situation and consulting with the admissions committee chair to determine if an extension or alternative documentation can be considered within the university's established policies. The correct answer is D. Proceed with a thorough review of the student's application, documenting the situation and consulting with the admissions committee chair to determine if an extension or alternative documentation can be considered within the university's established policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between a student's personal circumstances and the university's established admission policies. The admissions committee member faces a dilemma: uphold strict adherence to policy, potentially denying a deserving candidate, or consider extenuating circumstances, which could be perceived as favoritism or a deviation from objective evaluation. Careful judgment is required to balance fairness, integrity, and the university's commitment to equitable admissions. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the student's application, considering all submitted documentation and adhering strictly to Amity University's stated admission criteria and the relevant guidelines for evaluating applications. This approach prioritizes fairness and transparency, ensuring that all applicants are assessed against the same standards. It aligns with the ethical principle of impartiality and the regulatory expectation that university admissions processes are conducted without bias. The Amity University entrance exam guidelines likely emphasize merit-based selection and adherence to published admission criteria. An incorrect approach would be to unilaterally decide to admit the student based on the personal information shared, without a formal review process or consultation with the admissions committee. This bypasses established procedures and could lead to accusations of favoritism or a lack of due diligence, violating the principle of equitable treatment for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the application outright solely because of the perceived difficulty in meeting a specific requirement, without exploring potential waivers or alternative evidence that might satisfy the criterion, thus failing to exercise due diligence and potentially overlooking a qualified candidate. A third incorrect approach would be to discuss the student's personal situation with other faculty members not involved in the admissions committee, thereby breaching confidentiality and potentially influencing their opinions without a formal basis. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding and strictly adhering to the established policies and guidelines of Amity University. This involves a systematic evaluation of each application against defined criteria. When faced with complex situations or potential exceptions, the framework dictates seeking clarification from superiors or relevant committees, documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them, and ensuring that any deviations from standard procedure are justified, transparent, and applied consistently. The focus should always be on maintaining the integrity and fairness of the admissions process. Question 5. The analysis reveals that a fellow applicant for the Amity University entrance exam, whom you know casually, contacts you via a messaging app the night before the exam. They express extreme anxiety and ask if you can share any specific topics or questions you anticipate will be on the exam, stating they are desperate to pass. You have spent considerable time preparing and feel confident in your knowledge. How should you respond to uphold the principles of academic integrity as expected by Amity University? Option A. Politely decline the request, stating that you cannot share any exam-related information as it would compromise the integrity of the entrance process and is against university guidelines. Option B. Agree to share some of the more challenging questions you have encountered in your preparation, believing it might help them prepare better. Option C. Ignore the message, assuming that not responding is the safest course of action. Option D. Share a list of general subject areas you believe are important to study, without revealing any specific questions or topics you have encountered in practice materials. The correct answer is A. Politely decline the request, stating that you cannot share any exam-related information as it would compromise the integrity of the entrance process and is against university guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. Pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding ethical principles while respecting the university's regulatory framework. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and adhering strictly to the Amity University entrance exam guidelines. This means refusing to engage in any form of academic dishonesty, including sharing exam content. This aligns with the core ethical principles of honesty and fairness, which are fundamental to any educational institution's operational framework. Amity University, like all reputable institutions, expects candidates to demonstrate their knowledge and abilities through legitimate means. Any deviation from this expectation undermines the validity of the examination process and the credibility of the university. An incorrect approach would be to share the exam questions with a friend. This action directly violates the academic integrity policy of Amity University, which implicitly or explicitly prohibits the dissemination of examination materials before, during, or after the exam. Such a breach erodes trust and creates an unfair advantage for those who receive the information, compromising the competitive and meritocratic nature of the entrance exam. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the request and do nothing. While seemingly passive, this inaction can be interpreted as tacit approval or a failure to uphold ethical standards. In a professional context, particularly within an academic environment, there is often an expectation to act responsibly and report potential breaches of conduct. Remaining silent when aware of a potential violation can have negative consequences for the integrity of the examination process. A further incorrect approach would be to offer to help the friend study by providing general topics that might be covered. While this might seem like a helpful gesture, it still borders on providing an unfair advantage. The line between general preparation and providing specific, actionable information about the exam content is easily blurred. The ethical imperative is to avoid any action that could be construed as assisting in academic dishonesty, even indirectly. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university policies and ethical codes. When faced with a request that compromises academic integrity, the professional should first identify the ethical conflict. Then, they should consult the specific rules and guidelines governing the situation, in this case, the Amity University entrance exam regulations. The decision should be to uphold these regulations and ethical principles, even if it means disappointing or inconveniencing others. If unsure, seeking guidance from a trusted authority within the university, such as an admissions officer or a faculty advisor, is a prudent step. The ultimate goal is to act with integrity and ensure fairness for all candidates. Question 6. Operational review demonstrates that a prospective student who has applied for admission to Amity University, claims to have missed the entrance examination due to a sudden, severe family emergency that occurred on the day of the test. The student has provided a brief, unverified note from a relative as evidence. The admissions committee is under pressure to make a decision quickly before the final enrollment deadline. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Delegate the decision-making authority to the student's direct academic advisor, who has a personal rapport with the applicant, to expedite the process. Option B. Deny the student's request for a re-examination, citing the lack of official documentation and the need to maintain the integrity of the examination schedule. Option C. Immediately grant the student a re-examination opportunity based on the submitted note, prioritizing a swift resolution to meet the enrollment deadline. Option D. Conduct a thorough investigation into the student's claim, verifying the nature and severity of the family emergency through appropriate university channels and establish policy before making any decision on a re-examination. The correct answer is C. Immediately grant the student a re-examination opportunity based on the submitted note, prioritizing a swift resolution to meet the enrollment deadline. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to a student's personal circumstances. The university entrance exam's regulatory framework, as defined by Amity University's internal guidelines and any overarching national educational standards, likely emphasizes fairness, transparency, and the accurate assessment of a candidate's aptitude. The pressure to accommodate a student's difficulties must be balanced against the imperative to uphold the validity and credibility of the examination process. A hasty or overly lenient decision could undermine the fairness to other applicants and set a precedent that compromises the integrity of future admissions. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to Amity University's established policies for handling such situations. This typically includes verifying the student's claims through appropriate channels, consulting with relevant university departments, e.g., admissions, student support services, and making a decision based on documented evidence and established procedures. This ensures that any decision is fair, consistent, and defensible, upholding the university's commitment to academic standards and ethical conduct. The justification lies in adhering to the principles of due process and equitable treatment for all applicants, as mandated by the university's internal regulations and the broader ethical expectations of educational institutions. An incorrect approach would be to immediately grant special consideration without proper verification. This fails to uphold the principle of fairness to other candidates who met the standard requirements and could be seen as a breach of the university's admissions policy. It bypasses the established procedures for assessing extenuating circumstances, potentially leading to an arbitrary decision. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the student's request outright without any investigation. This demonstrates a lack of empathy and a failure to follow the university's potential guidelines for handling appeals or requests for special consideration. It risks alienating a student who may have genuine difficulties and could lead to reputational damage for the university if perceived as uncaring or inflexible. A third incorrect approach is to involve individuals not authorized by university policy in the decision-making process, such as discussing the student's personal details with faculty outside the admissions committee. This violates principles of confidentiality and procedural fairness, potentially compromising the integrity of the admissions process and exposing the university to ethical and possibly legal challenges. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge the student's situation and the need for a response. 2. Consult Amity University's official policies and procedures regarding admissions, special considerations, and appeals. 3. Gather all necessary documentation and evidence to support or refute the student's claims. 4. Engage relevant university departments or committees as per policy. 5. Make a decision based on objective criteria and established procedures, ensuring fairness and consistency. 6. Communicate the decision clearly and professionally to the student, providing reasons if appropriate and outlining any further recourse. Question 7. To address the challenge of preparing for the Amity University entrance exam while facing significant personal pressure to secure admission, a candidate discovers a method that could potentially provide them with an unfair advantage by accessing pre-exam materials. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for this candidate? Option A. Immediately report the discovery of the potential unfair advantage to the Amity University examination authorities and refrain from using any such materials. Option B. Discreetly utilize the discovered pre-exam materials to ensure a high score and admission, rationalizing that it is a common practice among ambitious students. Option C. Share the discovered pre-exam materials with a select group of trusted friends to help them also gain an advantage. Believing in collective success. Option D. Ignore the discovery and proceed with the exam as planned, hoping that their existing knowledge will be sufficient without acknowledging the potential ethical breach. The correct answer is A. Immediately report the discovery of the potential unfair advantage to the Amity University examination authorities and refrain from using any such materials. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while acknowledging the pressures faced by aspiring students. The correct approach involves a commitment to academic honesty and a refusal to engage in any form of cheating or plagiarism. This aligns with the core principles of academic integrity, which are fundamental to the Amity University entrance exams regulatory framework. Upholding these principles ensures a fair and equitable assessment process for all candidates, reflecting the university's values and the importance of genuine merit. This approach is ethically sound as it respects the rules and fosters an environment of trust and fairness. An incorrect approach that involves seeking unauthorized assistance or using prohibited materials directly violates the Amity University entrance exams guidelines on academic misconduct. This undermines the integrity of the examination process and devalues the achievements of honest candidates. Such actions are not only unethical, but also carry severe consequences, including disqualification and potential blacklisting from future academic pursuits. Another incorrect approach that involves misrepresenting one's qualifications or fabricating information to gain an advantage is a form of deception. This breaches the trust placed in candidates by the university and demonstrates a lack of integrity. It creates an unfair playing field and compromises the university's ability to accurately assess a candidate's suitability for admission based on their actual abilities and knowledge. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the exam's rules and regulations, particularly those pertaining to academic integrity. Candidates should then honestly assess their own preparedness and identify any areas where they may need further study. If faced with temptation or pressure, they should actively seek support from legitimate university resources, such as academic advisors or counseling services, rather than resorting to unethical means. Prioritizing honesty and integrity, even under pressure, is paramount to a successful and ethical academic journey. Question 8. The review process indicates a significant instance of academic misconduct, specifically plagiarism, in a student's submitted work for a critical course. The reviewer is aware that reporting this finding could lead to severe academic penalties for the student, potentially impacting their graduation prospects and the university's overall placement statistics. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for the reviewer? Option A. Directly confront the student with the evidence of plagiarism and attempt to negotiate a resolution without involving university administration or formal procedures. Option B. Omit the plagiarism from the review report, attributing the findings to minor errors in citation to protect the student's academic record and the university's reputation. Option C. Discreetly inform the student of the plagiarism and allow them to revise their work without formal reporting to avoid negative consequences for both the student and the university. Option D. Document the plagiarism accurately and report it through the official university channels for academic misconduct, initiating the established disciplinary process. The correct answer is D. Document the plagiarism accurately and report it through the official university channels for academic misconduct, initiating the established disciplinary process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes. The reviewer must navigate the ethical imperative to report findings accurately, even if they reflect poorly on a student's performance. against the potential for negative repercussions for the student and the institution's reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness, objectivity, and adherence to Amity University's academic policies. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of the student's work, followed by a clear and factual report of the findings, irrespective of potential consequences. This aligns with the ethical principles of academic honesty and professional integrity, which mandate that all evaluations be based on merit and evidence. Amity University's guidelines on academic assessment and ethical conduct would undoubtedly support such an approach, emphasizing the importance of truthful reporting and fair evaluation. An incorrect approach would be to downplay or omit the identified plagiarism to protect the student or the university's standing. This constitutes a failure to uphold academic integrity and violates the trust placed in the reviewer. Such an action could lead to the student receiving an undeserved grade, undermining the value of the degree, and potentially setting a precedent for academic dishonesty. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly without following established university procedures for addressing academic misconduct. This bypasses the formal review process and could lead to an unfair or biased outcome, potentially violating the student's right to a fair hearing as outlined in university regulations. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical codes. This involves 1. Identifying the core ethical conflict. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and guidelines on academic integrity and assessment. 3. Gathering all necessary evidence objectively. 4. Following the prescribed reporting procedures. 5. Maintaining confidentiality and impartiality throughout the process. Question 9. What factors determine the most appropriate course of action for a candidate facing personal challenges that significantly impact their preparation for the Amity University entrance exam, while also ensuring adherence to the exam's integrity and fairness principles? Option A. The candidate's personal belief about what constitutes a fair advantage, irrespective of established examination rules. Option B. The candidate's perceived likelihood of success if they were to use unauthorized assistance to overcome their preparation challenges. Option C. The candidate's assessment of how much their personal challenges will affect their exam score and whether this impact is justifiable. Option D. The candidate's commitment to academic honesty, exploration of legitimate support mechanisms, and adherence to the Amity University entrance exams regulations regarding fair assessment. The correct answer is B. The candidate's perceived likelihood of success if they were to use unauthorized assistance to overcome their preparation challenges. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in a crucial entrance exam, especially when facing personal difficulties, can tempt individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation ethically, upholding the principles of honesty and fairness that are fundamental to the Amity University entrance exam's regulatory framework. The correct approach involves prioritizing honesty and seeking legitimate support. This means refraining from any form of academic dishonesty, such as using unauthorized materials or seeking unfair advantages. Instead, the student should focus on preparing to the best of their ability within the established rules, and if personal circumstances are significantly impacting their preparation, explore university-provided support services or request reasonable accommodations through official channels, if such provisions exist within the Amity University entrance exams guidelines. This aligns with the core ethical principles of integrity and fairness expected of all candidates, ensuring that the assessment accurately reflects individual merit and effort. An incorrect approach would be to attempt to gain an unfair advantage by using unauthorized aids. This directly violates the Amity University entrance exams regulations against cheating and academic misconduct. Such actions undermine the integrity of the examination process, devalue the achievements of honest candidates, and can lead to severe penalties, including disqualification and a permanent record of academic dishonesty. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore personal difficulties and attempt the exam without seeking any form of support, potentially leading to a performance that does not accurately reflect the student's capabilities. While not directly violating a rule against dishonesty, it fails to leverage available ethical avenues for support, which could be considered a missed opportunity for responsible self-management within the academic environment. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant rules and ethical guidelines. This involves identifying the core values at stake, such as honesty, fairness, and integrity. Next, they should assess the potential consequences of different actions, both for themselves and for the broader community. Finally, they should choose the course of action that best upholds these values and adheres to the established regulations, prioritizing ethical conduct even under pressure. Question 10. Risk assessment procedures indicate a significant potential donation from a prominent businessperson whose company has recently faced public scrutiny for alleged unethical labor practices. The university's finance department is eager to accept the funds to support a new research initiative, but the ethics committee has raised concerns about the donor's reputation. What is the most ethically sound approach for the university to take? Option A. Reject the donation outright due to the public scrutiny without further investigation to avoid any association with controversy. Option B. Negotiate with the donor to have the funds anonymized so the university does not have to disclose the source of the donation. Option C. Accept the donation immediately to secure the funding for the research initiative, as the university's financial needs are pressing. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the donor's background and the source of their wealth, assessing potential reputational risks before making a decision. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the donor's background and the source of their wealth, assessing potential reputational risks before making a decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and uphold the reputation of the institution. The pressure to secure funding can create a conflict of interest, where the potential benefits of accepting a donation might overshadow the risks associated with the donor's questionable practices. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the university's core values and long-term interests are not compromised for short-term financial gain. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that goes beyond a superficial review. This includes investigating the donor's background, the source of their wealth, and any potential reputational risks associated with their association. The university must prioritize transparency and ethical considerations, ensuring that the donation aligns with its mission and values. This approach is ethically justified by the principle of avoiding conflicts of interest and maintaining the integrity of academic institutions. It also aligns with general principles of good governance and responsible financial management, which are implicitly expected of educational bodies. An incorrect approach would be to accept the donation without adequate scrutiny, driven solely by the immediate financial benefit. This fails to uphold the ethical duty to protect the university's reputation and academic standards. Accepting funds from a source with potential ethical or legal issues could lead to reputational damage, public criticism, and a loss of trust from students, faculty, and the wider community. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the donation outright without any investigation, which might be overly cautious and could lead to the loss of a potentially legitimate source of funding if the concerns are unfounded. However, the primary ethical failure lies in the lack of due diligence and the potential for association with unethical practices. Professionals in such situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves identifying the ethical dilemma, gathering all relevant information through diligent investigation, consulting with relevant stakeholders, e.g., ethics committee, legal counsel, evaluating the potential risks and benefits of each course of action, and making a decision that is consistent with the university's ethical code and long-term strategic objectives. The focus should always be on upholding the institution's integrity and reputation. Question 11. The assessment process reveals that a candidate for the Amity University entrance exam has narrowly missed the cutoff score for a highly sought-after program. However, the admissions committee member believes this candidate possesses exceptional extracurricular achievements and a strong potential for future success that might not be fully captured by the exam alone. This member is considering advocating for a special review or a slight upward adjustment of the candidate's score to ensure their admission. Option A suggests that the candidate be offered a place in a different, less competitive program within the university as an alternative, without re-evaluating their current application for the desired program. Option B. Advise the candidate to retake the entrance exam at the next available opportunity, regardless of their current performance or potential, to secure a place in the program. Option C. Propose a discretionary adjustment to the candidate's exam score, based on the perceived potential and extracurricular achievements, to meet the program's cutoff. Option D. Recommend a thorough review of the candidate's entire application, including their exam performance, extracurriculars, and any supplementary materials, to be assessed strictly against the published admission criteria and program requirements by the designated admissions committee, without altering the exam score itself. Correct answer is D. Recommend a thorough review of the candidate's entire application, including their exam performance, extracurriculars, and any supplementary materials, to be assessed strictly against the published admission criteria and program requirements by the designated admissions committee, without altering the exam score itself. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a candidate's perceived potential and the integrity of the Amity University entrance exam's established admission criteria. The pressure to admit a promising candidate, potentially influenced by external factors or a desire to foster talent, must be balanced against the university's commitment to fair and equitable assessment for all applicants. The core ethical considerations revolve around transparency, fairness, and upholding the validity of the examination process. The correct approach involves a rigorous and objective reevaluation of the candidate's performance against the established marking scheme and admission criteria, without any deviation or special consideration based on subjective factors. This upholds the principle of equal opportunity and ensures that all candidates are assessed on the same objective standards. Specifically, adhering strictly to the published admission criteria and the established marking rubric for the Amity University entrance exam is paramount. This aligns with the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity and credibility of the university selection process, preventing any perception of bias or favoritism. An incorrect approach would be to advocate for a subjective adjustment of the candidate's score, or to bypass standard admission procedures based on personal judgment or external influence. This would constitute a breach of fairness and equity, undermining the trust placed in the examination system. Such actions could lead to accusations of bias, potentially damaging the university's reputation and creating a precedent for future unfair admissions. Furthermore, it violates the implicit contract with all applicants that the assessment will be conducted impartially. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a borderline case or a situation that raises concerns, a professional should 1. Consult the official admission criteria and marking rubrics. 2. Seek clarification from relevant university authorities or examination committees if ambiguity exists. 3. Maintain strict objectivity and avoid personal biases or external pressures. 4. Document all decisions and the rationale behind them. 5. Prioritize the integrity and fairness of the examination process above all else. Question 12. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a significant donation offer has been received from an individual with a documented history of unethical business practices, including allegations of environmental violations and exploitative labor conditions. The university faces budget shortfalls, and this donation could alleviate immediate financial pressures and fund a critical new research initiative. The university's ethics committee has raised concern, but the administration is keen to secure the funds. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the university administration? Option A. Accept the donation immediately to address the urgent financial needs and fund the research initiative, with a plan to address any potential negative publicity later. Option B. Reject the donation outright based on the initial negative information without further investigation to avoid any association with unethical practices. Option C. Accept the donation, but implement strict internal controls to ensure the funds are used solely for the research initiative and are not associated with the donor's problematic practices. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive and transparent due diligence investigation into the donor's background and the implications of accepting the funds, involving the ethics committee and legal counsel before making a final decision. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive and transparent due diligence investigation into the donor's background and the implications of accepting the funds, involving the ethics committee and legal counsel before making a final decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the long-term ethical implications of accepting funding from a source with questionable practices. The pressure to secure resources can create a conflict of interest, where the perceived benefits of the funding might overshadow potential reputational damage and ethical compromises. Careful judgment is required to navigate this conflict, ensuring that decisions align with the university's core values and academic integrity. The correct approach involves a thorough and transparent due diligence process that prioritizes ethical considerations and potential reputational risks over immediate financial gain. This includes engaging relevant stakeholders, such as the ethics committee and legal counsel, to assess the donor's background and the implications of accepting their funds. The justification for this approach lies in upholding the university's commitment to academic integrity and its responsibility to maintain public trust. Accepting funds from a source with a history of unethical practices could undermine the university's reputation, attract negative publicity, and potentially compromise the independence of its research and academic programs. Adhering to established ethical guidelines and university policies, which typically mandate such rigorous vetting, is paramount. An incorrect approach would be to immediately accept the funding without adequate scrutiny. This fails to acknowledge the potential ethical and reputational risks associated with the donor's past actions, prioritizes short-term financial gain over long-term institutional integrity, which is a significant ethical failure. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the funding, but attempt to conceal the source or its problematic history. This constitutes a lack of transparency and honesty, which erodes trust among students, faculty, and the wider community. It also creates a vulnerability to future exposure, which could lead to severe reputational damage. A third incorrect approach would be to reject the funding solely based on the initial negative perception, without conducting a comprehensive investigation. While caution is necessary, a blanket rejection without due diligence might overlook potential nuances or opportunities for constructive engagement, though in this specific scenario, the ethical concerns are presented as significant. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with identifying the ethical dilemma. This is followed by gathering all relevant information, including the donor's background, the proposed use of funds, and university policies. Next, they should identify all stakeholders and consider their perspectives. Evaluating the potential consequences of each course of action, both positive and negative, is crucial. Finally, the decision should be made based on established ethical principles and university regulations, with a commitment to transparency and accountability. Question 13. Risk assessment procedures indicate a candidate in the Amity University entrance exam is discreetly using a mobile phone under their desk during a critical section of the test. The invigilator observes this behavior. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Discreetly approach the candidate, confiscate the mobile phone, and inform them that their examination is invalidated. Then proceed to report the incident formally to the examination board. Option B. Privately speak to the candidate after the exam concludes, explaining the seriousness of the infraction and issuing a stern warning. Option C. Ignore the behavior to avoid disrupting other candidates and potentially causing a scene, assuming it might be an accidental or minor issue. Option D. Continue invigilating the rest of the exam, and make a note to mention the observed behavior in the post-exam report, without immediate intervention. The correct answer is A. Discreetly approach the candidate, confiscate the mobile phone, and inform them that their examination is invalidated, then proceed to report the incident formally to the examination board. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes, particularly in the context of a university entrance exam. The candidate's perceived need to gain an unfair advantage, coupled with the potential for the invigilator to overlook minor infractions, creates an ethical tightrope. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and honesty that underpin the examination process. The correct approach involves immediate and direct intervention to address the observed irregularity. This upholds the principle of fairness by ensuring all candidates are assessed on their own merit, and prevents the compromise of the examination's integrity. Specifically, it aligns with the Amity University entrance exam's stated guidelines on academic honesty and the general ethical duty of examination invigilators to maintain a fair and secure testing environment. By reporting the incident, the invigilator acts as a guardian of the examination's credibility. An incorrect approach of ignoring the behavior is ethically unacceptable because it tacitly condones cheating and undermines the value of the examination for all participants. This failure directly violates the spirit and likely the letter of academic integrity policies. Another incorrect approach of confronting the candidate privately and issuing a warning without formal reporting is also problematic. While seemingly less confrontational, it fails to establish a clear record of the infraction and may not adequately deter future misconduct, nor does it ensure a consistent application of examination rules across all candidates. This approach risks setting a precedent where minor infractions are handled inconsistently, eroding the perceived fairness of the examination process. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established rules and ethical principles. This involves 1. Observation, clearly and objectively noting the suspected infraction. 2. Assessment, evaluating the severity and certainty of the infraction against exam regulations. 3. Action, taking immediate, appropriate, and documented action as per the examination's procedural guidelines. 4. Reporting, formally documenting and reporting the incident to the designated authority for further investigation and decision-making. This systematic approach ensures accountability and maintains the integrity of the assessment process. Question 14. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a significant potential donor, whose company has faced recent public scrutiny for environmental noncompliance, has offered a substantial grant to fund a new research initiative at Amity University. The grant proposal is otherwise aligned with the university's strategic research priorities. The donor's offer comes with a clause suggesting that the university should consider the donor's perspective when publishing findings related to the funded research. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach for Amity University to take in this situation? Option A. Conduct an independent, in-depth review of the donor's environmental record and the implications of the consider clause, seeking legal and ethical counsel before making any decision, and if accepted, establishing clear protocols for research independence and publication. Option B. Reject the grant outright due to the donor's environmental history and the ambiguous clause, to avoid any potential reputational damage or ethical compromise. Option C. Accept the grant but discreetly ensure that the research focus is shifted away from any topics that might directly challenge the donor's business practices, without informing the donor or the research team of this shift. Option D. Immediately accept the grant to secure the much-needed funding. Assuming the donor's perspective is a minor formality that will not impact research integrity. The correct answer is A. Conduct an independent, in-depth review of the donor's environmental record and the implications of the consider clause, seeking legal and ethical counsel before making any decision, and if accepted, establishing clear protocols for research independence and publication. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the long-term ethical implications of accepting potentially compromised research funding. The pressure to secure funding can create a conflict of interest, where the desire for financial stability might overshadow the responsibility to uphold research integrity and academic standards. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without jeopardizing the university's reputation or the validity of its research output. The correct approach involves a thorough, independent review of the funding source and its associated conditions. This approach is right because it prioritizes academic integrity and ethical research practices, which are foundational to the university's mission and reputation. By seeking an independent assessment, the university demonstrates a commitment to due diligence and avoids potential conflicts of interest. This aligns with the principles of responsible research conduct, which emphasize transparency, objectivity, and the avoidance of undue influence from external parties. Specifically, it adheres to the spirit of academic freedom and the ethical obligation to ensure research is conducted for the advancement of knowledge, not solely for financial gain or to serve external agendas. An incorrect approach that involves immediately accepting the funding without further scrutiny fails to acknowledge the potential ethical red flags raised by the funding source's history. This could lead to the university becoming complicit in unethical practices or producing research that is biased or lacks credibility, thereby violating its ethical obligations to the academic community and the public. Another incorrect approach, which is to reject the funding solely based on the initial risk assessment without any attempt at further clarification or negotiation, might be overly cautious and could lead to the loss of valuable research opportunities. While prudence is necessary, a complete dismissal without understanding the specifics of the conditions or exploring mitigation strategies might not be the most balanced or professionally sound decision. A third incorrect approach, which is to accept the funding but attempt to subtly steer the research away from any potentially problematic areas without explicit disclosure, is ethically unsound. This lack of transparency undermines the integrity of the research process and can lead to accusations of bias or deception, damaging the university's credibility. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the ethical dilemma and potential conflicts of interest. 2. Gather all relevant information about the funding source and its conditions. 3. Consult relevant university policies, ethical guidelines, and professional codes of conduct. 4. Seek independent advice or an independent review of the situation. 5. Evaluate the potential risks and benefits of accepting or rejecting the funding. 6. Engage in open and transparent communication with all stakeholders. 7. Make a decision based on ethical principles and the long-term interests of the university and its research mission. Question 15. Governance review demonstrates that a member of the Amity University Entrance Exam Admissions Committee has a close personal relationship with the parent of an applicant. This applicant is highly qualified academically, but the committee member's personal connection could be perceived as influencing their judgment. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for this committee member? Option A. Advocate for the applicant's admission, highlighting their strong academic profile and the potential benefits their family's connections could bring to the university. Option B. Discreetly mention the applicant's family's influence during committee discussions to subtly encourage a favorable outcome without explicitly stating the personal connection. Option C. Proceed with evaluating the applicant as usual, believing their personal relationship will not affect their objective assessment. Option D. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recuse themselves from any discussion or voting on the applicant's admission. The correct answer is D. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recuse themselves from any discussion or voting on the applicant's admission. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes for the university. The admissions committee member faces a dilemma where personal relationships and potential institutional benefit, attracting a well-connected applicant, could influence an objective decision. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy in the admissions process, which are fundamental to the reputation and credibility of Amity University. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established admissions criteria and acting with impartiality, even when faced with personal connections or potential institutional advantages. This aligns with the ethical principles of objectivity and integrity expected of all university staff involved in admissions. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit guidelines of Amity University's admissions policy, which would undoubtedly emphasize fair evaluation based on academic merit and suitability, free from undue influence. By recusing themselves from the decision-making process for the applicant they know, the committee member upholds the principle of avoiding conflicts of interest, ensuring that the evaluation is conducted by individuals without personal bias. This safeguards the integrity of the admissions process and maintains trust in the university's selection methods. An incorrect approach would be to advocate for the applicant's admission based on their family's influence or potential future contributions to the university, without a thorough and objective assessment of their qualifications against the established criteria. This fails to uphold the principle of meritocracy and introduces an unfair advantage, potentially disadvantaging more qualified candidates. Such an action would violate the ethical obligation to treat all applicants equally and could lead to a perception of favoritism, damaging the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to subtly steer the discussion towards the applicant's strengths without disclosing the personal connection, hoping to influence the committee indirectly. This is a form of deception and a failure to be transparent. It undermines the collaborative and objective nature of committee deliberations and is ethically unsound, as it manipulates the process rather than contributing to an honest evaluation. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant's application outright due to the personal connection, without allowing for a fair evaluation. While avoiding a conflict of interest is important, completely disregarding an application solely based on a relationship, without considering its merits, can also be seen as unfair and a missed opportunity to assess a potentially suitable candidate objectively. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of university policies regarding admissions and conflicts of interest. When a potential conflict arises, a professional should first identify the nature of the relationship and its potential to influence judgment. The next step is to proactively disclose the relationship to the relevant authority or committee. Following disclosure, the professional should recuse themselves from any decision-making or discussion directly pertaining to the applicant in question. If unsure, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the university's ethics committee is a crucial step. This structured approach ensures that decisions are made impartially and ethically, preserving the integrity of the institution. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a potential shortfall in departmental enrollment for the upcoming academic year, and the head of department is aware of a promising candidate who narrowly missed the minimum entrance score for the Amity University entrance exam due to extenuating personal circumstances. The candidate has strong extracurricular achievements and a compelling personal statement. The head of department is considering advocating for an exception to the admission score policy to secure this enrollment. Option A. Inform the candidate that they did not meet the required score and therefore cannot be admitted, without exploring any potential avenues for review or exception. Option B. Directly approve the candidate's admission to the department, citing the departmental enrollment targets and the candidate's potential contribution, without further consultation with admissions or academic committees. Option C. Propose a formal review of the candidate's application by the admissions committee, presenting all relevant information including the extenuating circumstances and the candidate's strengths, and advocating for a potential waiver based on established university protocols for exceptional cases. Option D. Suggest that the candidate reapply for the following academic year, without considering their current situation, or the possibility of an immediate admission based on exceptional merit. The correct answer is C. Propose a formal review of the candidate's application by the admissions committee, presenting all relevant information including the extenuating circumstances and the candidate's strengths, and advocating for a potential waiver based on established university protocols for exceptional cases. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial pressures of a university department with the long-term ethical implications of academic integrity and fair assessment. The department head is facing a situation where a deviation from standard procedure could offer a short-term solution, but risks undermining the credibility of the Amity University entrance exam and potentially harming future students. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's values and regulatory obligations. The correct approach involves a transparent and collaborative discussion with the relevant academic committees and admissions office, adhering strictly to Amity University's established policies for handling borderline cases and special circumstances. This approach is right because it prioritizes fairness, consistency, and due process, which are fundamental ethical principles in academic admissions. It ensures that any decision is made through established channels, with appropriate oversight and consideration of all relevant factors, thereby upholding the integrity of the entrance examination process as mandated by Amity University's academic regulations and ethical guidelines. An incorrect approach that involves unilaterally approving the student's admission based on the department's perceived need for enrollment numbers would be ethically unacceptable. It bypasses established procedures and creates an unfair advantage for one student over others who met the standard criteria. It violates the principle of equal opportunity and could be seen as a breach of academic governance, potentially leading to reputational damage for Amity University. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the student's situation without proper consideration or consultation, is also professionally unsound. While it adheres to the letter of the existing policy, it fails to demonstrate empathy and a commitment to finding fair solutions within the university's framework. This could lead to a perception of inflexibility and a lack of support for students facing genuine challenges, which is contrary to the spirit of higher education. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the core ethical and regulatory conflict. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and guidelines. 3. Seeking advice from appropriate committees or senior administration. 4. Documenting all discussions and decisions. 5. Ensuring transparency and fairness in the final outcome. Question 17. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for undue influence in the Amity University entrance exam admissions process. As a member of the admissions committee, you are aware that a close family friend's child is applying for admission and has performed moderately well in the entrance examination, but their scores are not exceptionally high. You also know that this candidate's admission could potentially lead to significant philanthropic contributions to the university from their family. How should you proceed? Option A. Suggest that the candidate retake the entrance examination to improve their scores, implying that their current performance is insufficient for admission. Option B. Discreetly inform the candidate's family about the specific score thresholds required for admission and offer guidance on how to marginally improve their application to meet these criteria. Option C. Objectively evaluate the candidate's application based solely on their entrance exam scores and other documented academic qualifications, and if a conflict of interest is perceived, disclose it and recuse yourself from the final decision. Option D. Advocate for the candidate's admission, highlighting the potential for future philanthropic benefits to the university, while acknowledging their moderate exam performance. The correct answer is D. Advocate for the candidate's admission, highlighting the potential for future philanthropic benefits to the university, while acknowledging their moderate exam performance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes for the university. Admissions committee member faces a dilemma where personal relationships and potential institutional benefit might influence objective decision-making, compromising the fairness and credibility of the Amity University entrance exam process. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established admission criteria and the integrity of the entrance examination process above all else. This means evaluating the candidates solely based on their performance in the exam and their documented qualifications, without allowing personal connections or perceived institutional advantages to sway the decision. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, objectivity, and transparency expected of all individuals involved in university admissions, and implicitly with the regulatory framework governing educational institutions which mandates impartial evaluation. An incorrect approach would be to advocate for the candidate's admission based on the personal connection or the potential for future institutional benefit. This fails to uphold the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and undermines the validity of the entrance examination as a measure of merit. Such an action could be seen as a breach of ethical conduct, potentially violating university policies on conflicts of interest and fair admissions practices. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the candidate's application altogether due to the personal connection, fearing a conflict of interest. While caution is warranted, outright avoidance without proper disclosure and recusal procedures can also be problematic. It might be perceived as a failure to perform one's duties, or could lead to the candidate being unfairly disadvantaged if their application is not properly considered. The professional reasoning process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. When a potential conflict of interest arises, the professional should first identify the nature of the conflict. Then, they should consult relevant policies and, if necessary, seek guidance from a supervisor or ethics committee. Transparency and disclosure are crucial. If a decision cannot be made objectively due to the conflict, the professional should recuse themselves from the decision-making process concerning that specific candidate. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all decisions are fair, impartial, and in accordance with established regulations and ethical standards. Question 18. The efficiency study reveals that admitting students with a specific prior academic background significantly reduces the average time to graduation and improves overall program completion rates. A prospective student who otherwise meets the minimum academic requirements but lacks this specific background is being considered. The admissions committee is aware that admitting this student might slightly lower the institution's efficiency metrics as per the study, but they also recognize the student's strong potential and unique extracurricular achievements. How should the admissions committee proceed? Option A. Seek to subtly adjust the evaluation of the student's application to better fit the efficiency study's parameters, perhaps by overemphasizing minor academic achievements. Option B. Postpone the decision on this student until further data can be gathered on how students with similar profiles impact efficiency metrics. Option C. Evaluate the student solely based on the established admission criteria, including academic merit, aptitude, and potential, without allowing the efficiency study's findings to unduly influence the decision. Option D. Prioritize admitting students who align with the efficiency study's findings to enhance the university's overall performance metrics, even if it means overlooking some of the student's strengths. The correct answer is C. Evaluate the student solely based on the established admission criteria, including academic merit, aptitude, and potential, without allowing the efficiency study's findings to unduly influence the decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it pits the pursuit of academic excellence and institutional reputation against the ethical obligation to ensure fair and transparent admissions processes. The pressure to admit high-achieving students, as indicated by the efficiency study's findings, can create an environment where ethical boundaries are tested. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with the integrity of the admissions process and the principles of fairness. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established admission criteria and ensuring that all candidates are evaluated objectively based on these criteria, regardless of any perceived impact on institutional efficiency metrics. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy that underpin academic institutions. Specifically, Amity University's entrance exam guidelines, which emphasize a holistic review of candidates based on academic merit, aptitude, and potential, mandate that no undue influence or preferential treatment be given to any applicant. Adhering to these guidelines ensures that the admissions process is equitable and upholds the university's commitment to academic integrity. An incorrect approach would be to deviate from the established admission criteria to favor candidates who might appear to contribute more to the university's efficiency metrics, such as those with prior connections or those who might expedite program completion. This would be a failure to uphold the principle of fairness and could lead to accusations of bias and a compromised admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to selectively highlight or downplay certain aspects of a candidate's profile to fit a predetermined outcome, thereby undermining transparency and merit-based evaluation. Such actions violate the ethical duty to provide an honest and unbiased assessment of all applicants. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the university's stated admission policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with conflicting pressures, such as those suggested by an efficiency study, the framework should involve 1. Reaffirming commitment to established, objective criteria. 2. Consulting with relevant committees or superiors if ambiguity or pressure arises. 3. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them to ensure transparency and accountability. 4. Prioritizing the long-term integrity and reputation of the institution over short-term perceived gains. Question 19. Risk assessment procedures indicate that during the Amity University entrance exam, an invigilator is approached by a candidate who, in a hushed tone, asks if the invigilator could subtly point out the correct answers to a few questions they are unsure about, stating they are under immense pressure to perform well. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Politely decline the request, explaining that the examination process must be fair and impartial for all candidates, and that any form of assistance is strictly prohibited by the Amity University entrance exam regulations. Option B. Agree to subtly assist the candidate with a few answers, believing it to be a minor favor that won't significantly impact the overall fairness of the exam. Option C. Immediately report the candidate to the examination authorities without any further interaction. Option D. Ignore the candidate's request and continue with invigilation duties, as if the conversation never happened. Correct answer is A. Politely decline the request, explaining that the examination process must be fair and impartial for all candidates, and that any form of assistance is strictly prohibited by the Amity University entrance exam regulations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes, which can be amplified in a competitive university entrance exam environment. The candidate's request, while seemingly minor, touches upon the ethical boundaries of fairness and impartiality in assessment. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of the Amity University entrance exam. The correct approach involves politely but firmly declining the request, explaining that the examination process is designed to be standardized and fair for all candidates. This upholds the principle of equal opportunity and prevents any perception of bias or unfair advantage. Adherence to the Amity University entrance exam's guidelines on examination conduct, which implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of external assistance or influence during the test, is paramount. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the assessment process and maintains trust in the examination's validity. An incorrect approach would be to agree to the candidate's request, even if it seems like a small favor. This would violate the fundamental ethical principle of fairness and impartiality. It would create an unfair advantage for the candidate, compromising the integrity of the examination and potentially leading to a candidate being admitted based on factors other than their merit. This action would also contravene any explicit or implicit rules of the Amity University entrance exam regarding the conduct of invigilators and the sanctity of the examination environment. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the request and proceed with the examination without addressing it. This is problematic because it fails to uphold the invigilator's responsibility to ensure a fair examination environment. It leaves the situation unresolved and could lead to the candidate feeling emboldened to make further inappropriate requests or to believe that such behavior is acceptable. This passive stance undermines the proactive role required of an invigilator in maintaining exam integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to report the candidate to the authorities without first attempting to de-escalate the situation or clarify the rules. While reporting is a necessary step if the behavior persists or escalates, an immediate report without a polite refusal can be seen as overly punitive and may not align with the spirit of guiding candidates towards correct conduct. A professional decision-making process should involve a clear understanding of the examination rules, a commitment to fairness, and the ability to communicate these principles effectively and respectfully to candidates. When faced with such a situation, an invigilator should first assess the request against the exam regulations, then communicate the relevant rules clearly and politely, and only escalate if the candidate persists or the request is egregious. Question 20. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new online proctoring system for the Amity University entrance exam could significantly reduce administrative costs and increase the reach of the exam. However, concerns have been raised about potential technical glitches, data privacy, and the impact on students with limited internet access. Which approach best addresses the multifaceted implications of this proposed change within the Amity University entrance exam framework? Option A. Proceed with the implementation of the online proctoring system immediately to capitalize on the projected cost savings, assuming that any technical issues can be resolved post-implementation. Option B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates the financial savings, potential for increased accessibility, risks to data security and student privacy, and the equitable impact on all prospective candidates, including those with limited digital resources. Option C. Implement the online proctoring system only for candidates residing in urban areas where internet access is generally reliable, thereby mitigating risks associated with limited connectivity. Option D. Focus exclusively on the financial benefits of the online proctoring system, as cost reduction is the primary driver for improving the efficiency of the entrance exam administration. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates the financial savings, potential for increased accessibility, risks to data security and student privacy, and the equitable impact on all prospective candidates, including those with limited digital resources. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the potential benefits of a new initiative against its associated costs, while strictly adhering to the regulatory framework of the Amity University entrance exam. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate method for evaluating this initiative within the specific context of university admissions and the governing regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen evaluation method aligns with the principles of fairness, transparency, and compliance with Amity University's established entrance exam guidelines. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that considers not only financial costs and benefits, but also qualitative factors such as the impact on student diversity, the fairness of the assessment process, and the alignment with the university's educational objectives. This approach is right because it aligns with the overarching goal of a university entrance exam, which is to select suitable candidates in a fair and equitable manner, while also considering the broader implications of any changes. Regulatory and ethical justifications for this approach stem from the implicit requirement of any educational institution to act in the best interest of its students and the integrity of its admissions process. The Amity University entrance exam framework, by its nature, would prioritize fairness and effectiveness in candidate selection. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate financial gains would fail to consider the long-term implications for the university's reputation and the quality of its student body. This would be a regulatory and ethical failure, as it prioritizes short-term financial expediency over the core mission of education and equitable access. Another incorrect approach that neglects to assess the impact on diverse student groups would violate principles of equal opportunity and potentially contravene any implicit or explicit guidelines within the Amity University framework that promote inclusivity. This represents an ethical failure and a potential regulatory breach if diversity is a stated objective of the university. An approach that overlooks the alignment with the university's academic goals would lead to a misallocation of resources and potentially admit students who are not well suited to the academic programs, undermining the effectiveness of the entrance exam. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the objectives of the Amity University entrance exam. This involves identifying all relevant stakeholders and their interests. The next step is to define the scope of the evaluation, ensuring it encompasses both quantitative and qualitative impacts. Then, appropriate methodologies for data collection and analysis should be selected, prioritizing those that are robust, transparent, and ethically sound. Finally, the findings should be interpreted in light of the university's mission and regulatory obligations, leading to a well-reasoned recommendation.